is Mr. Alejandro Martinez. And I did see, yes, thank you,
Yes,
Alejandro.
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. And I just introduced you briefly because you are a law student.
Yes,
So I think it's very good to get your perspective. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Barcelona. Is that right?
thank you. Yes, thank you so much to
Excellent.
all of you for the opportunity.
Well, no, it's really good of you to join us. Again, interesting to have a different perspective, and again from a well, we've had one Spanish perspective already this morning, but now to have another one. So you're going to be talking about European laws on education, problems and solutions, and
Yes,
from a law student's perspective, which is great. So thank you very much. The floor is yours.
thank you so much. Well, the first thing I want to talk about are basically I will talk first of all about a comparison between Asia and Europe, why Asian students are performing better. Then I will go to talk about why European laws are failing and if we can do something or if they are really failing. And then I want to talk about which is the role of the European Union. Well, first of all, there is a researcher that has been doing some research about the difference between Asia and Europe. He is the professor CUHK. He's a researcher from the Normal University, and he was asked why Asian students are performing better. So he explained because some people think that maybe some students are better than others, but he said no, that's not the reason. There are many other reasons, such as, for example, he explained that in Asian society there is much more discipline. So a teacher doesn't need to be calling the attention to every student like, please shut up. So they have more time in explaining the class than not in Western countries. He also told that Asian teachers have more formation and they worry much more about how to do the classes than not in Europe because in many cases they have more incentives. Also, he talked about that there is family pressure and also social pressure on the student because depending of his performance, he's going to be able to go to a different university or different high school, and this will probably change all his future life. That doesn't happen in Europe, so the student doesn't have that kind of pressure. But he also said that even if Asian students have a better performance, then there is a lack of creativity when they go to university or also in their job. So there are like some good things, but also bad things. When we go to the results in the PSA 2018 results, we see that the first countries are China, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea. Most of them, they are Asian countries. Then we have other Europeans, such as Finland. And I was really thinking why that was happening, not just for what the professor says, if there is some other reason that could be changed. And I was looking in the data of the World Bank, and I realized that European countries usually spend a bit less money, that some spend more money, sorry, than not Asian countries, and that was something that really surprised me. So I was starting to think, well, maybe it's not all about the money that you spend by student. Maybe there are other reasons. So, for example, when we look in the number of classes per year, how many hours does a student spend in this class? In China, there is the country where students spend more hours per class, more than 2,000 per year. Instead, if we look, for example, in comparison with Spain, this my country, we almost spend the half of the time in the high school, and there is a difference in the ranking. So I was thinking that maybe spend more hours in class will be something reasonable. Could this be applied in Europe or not? So there is a documentary, a social experiment that was carried in the United Kingdom that was are our kids tough enough, where during a time, I think it was a month, some Chinese teachers implement the Chinese system in the United Kingdom, and it didn't work. It didn't work because we have to understand that every country has its social reality, its social background. So we cannot try to implement one background in another country. This is going to be really difficult to do. So that's why I think that the Chinese system failed when it was tried to apply in the UK. So now I will talk about the European Union. What is the role of the European Union? So basically, European Union in education, they don't have the competence on this matter, but they are doing different things. The first thing that they are doing is that they have different plans and goals. For example, some of their plans are internships that they are offering. They offer the possibility to students to do some kind of internships in different levels of the European Union, depending on their interest, to improve their formation. I think that that's something really positive because also lets the students get involved in the European institutions. Then also they are doing something that also has been really positive, that is the Erasmus program. It is an exchange program between European universities that also is paid by the European Union. So the students get some kind of a scholarship, and it makes easier to move from one country to another, and it also provides a really good experience because people can learn languages and also learn about other culture, and also it doesn't just help them to improve in their career, like in the formation, also in the way that they understand everything. So it is a really good improvement. And moreover of the plans, they also have different goals that they invest. For example, lately they had been investing in the integration of migrants, or for example, in the improvement of the teaching standards. So to do that, what they do is that they invest in different cooperations of different areas in local levels or also in regional levels, but they don't have the possibility to say, let's do a single education for all Europe. And the second thing that the European Union did, but it was not exactly the European Union, it was the ministries of education of different countries, was the Bologna plan or Bologna process. It was a plan that was to try to unify more the European university system. And it consisted basically in the 3 years of bachelor and then 2 years of master program. But that didn't really work. It is a bit different of what it was used to be, because usually in many European countries, the subject just have a final exam, and after the final exam you pass or not. Instead, with the Bologna plan, there are like other tests and different activities to try to make the student work every day. The thing is that this plan didn't work really good because many countries didn't want to join, just a couple of them, and it was not really applied in Europe. So are European laws failing or not, or what can we do? Well, some of the problems that have European laws are basically problems related, for example, with the investment. In the UK, I had been reading a report that they didn't invest too much. In fact, the budget for education was reduced to the number that it was in 1970. So it means that there has been a decreasing in the education. And also, different countries have different problems that happens in the UK. In Italy, some researchers and professors complain that there are differences in the socioeconomic backgrounds of the students. So a student that comes from a bad background, probably he's not going to be able to go to the university and succeed. Instead, someone that comes from a good background has more chances. So basically in Italy, they were talking about to try to reduce those differences, maybe with scholarships or with different kind of help that also incentivize the students to study. Also, different countries, such as in Hungary, they have a problem in the middle school because some schools have a different system and they are trying to unify it, as far as I know. So the problem is that every country has different problems and difficulties, and there is not exactly a solution for everyone. But some researchers say that maybe a good solution will be to try to incentivize students and also teachers. For example, in Denmark, university students, they are getting paid for a study. So this basically incentivizes them to keep studying, and also different teachers, maybe they will have some kind of economic incentive to help them to do their work better. So which are the different European systems that we have? I think that there are like different systems that I want to talk about, 4 of them, that 2 are the most successful ones. So that could be, the first one is the German system. The German system is different from other systems because it's a combination between teaching and also training. They think that the education also has a purpose on the work. So what they try to do is that they try to integrate what the market needs inside education. So in some cases, even the companies make a formation for their future employees. So we have a mixed system that it is not just education, also it has trainings, and it has been successful, not just in the rankings that we see in middle school, also because Germany is one of the countries with less youth unemployment. Then we have another system that could be the system of Finland. This system is different from the German one because what they try to do is that the student has a self-study, and also he understands and likes what he's studying. In fact, they are applying the new technologies. They are even using video games in teaching for help students. And also they try to give the maximum autonomy to the teacher and also even reward them when they do their work good. So the Finnish system is probably the European one that is working better because they try that the students like what he's doing, that he enjoys learning, and that has really good results. Then we have, for example, the Italian system. In the Italian system, we will say that the students, when they are 16, they specialize. When they go to high school, they basically can choose between different kinds of high school, and the subjects are completely different. For example, there are some high schools that focus on science, others that focus more on literature and history, and others that focus more on languages. So depending the things that the students like most, he can go to a different school. And I think that in the theory, that's a really good thing, but it doesn't end to work in the practice because Italy is not really good in the rankings and also has a lot of youth unemployment. So I think that there are different problems, maybe related with what I said before about the background in education. And then we have the system in Netherlands. The system in Netherlands divides the students in 5 levels according to their performance. And depending on the level that is a student, for example, if he's in the level 3, he can become a teacher in the future. But if he's in the number 5, he can become a teacher, but also a doctor. So to be in one level or another, every year there is some kind of exam. And depending on the results of that exam, each student is classified in one of those levels. So those are different systems in Europe, and some of them, they have their positive things and their negative things. I was thinking that maybe the system of Netherlands was a really good thing because when a subject is difficult, some students need more help, and others, when this is becoming really easy or they love it, they maybe need even more work to try to improve. So I think that the system is really positive, but the thing is that according to different researchers, even in Spain from my university, they think that what the system does is that students that have more difficulties, then they're not going to succeed in their studies, is what some researchers think. So my opinion is that there should be some kind of mixed system between understand what the market needs to improve education in university level, and also try to incentivize students and teachers to do their performance much better, not just the students, also the teachers. And I think that now we have to understand that education is completely different to any point of history. We have internet, and that's something really important, because before, someone that was smart was someone that could memorize things. For example, a good lawyer was someone that if you asked him which is the article 35 of your civil code, he knew exactly what it said. But now that's not really necessary to be a good lawyer. You have internet, and in less than 5 seconds, you can find out what it says. So I think that we have to understand that education has to change. And instead of memorize, what we have to try to do is to know how to find the things maybe and how to use them better. Because memorize is important, but it's not everything. We have to understand how to do the things. So I think that education has to do a change in Europe, also because in Europe we have a single market in theory. So we have to make an education that also be positive for the market, but also positive for the students. So if we want that education succeed, first of all, we should think, why do we want education? Do we want education for students to learn, or we want education for they be more suitable for the market? Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. That was very interesting, and I'm glad in your bio where you finish up with, education is the most important part of a society. Of course, I have to agree with you there. I think my job depends on it. You mentioned that as well. Do we need education to keep people in jobs, people like me? Anyway, the point you raised, the different ways that people respond, perhaps, and different forms of education. You've had some experience, I think, haven't you? Because you've actually been on exchange in Shanghai. Was that right?
Yes.
In Fudan? How did you find that? How did you find that experience?
I found it really interesting, also not just in the difference between culture, also in the difference between teaching. When I was in Fudan, the final assessment of the subjects was a final easy or something that the student could choose. The teacher said like, okay, you have learned all of this, so you have to choose a topic and talk or work on it. So basically it gave us an autonomy, and also it gave us the possibility to choose and to work by ourselves and decide what to do. That is different from the Spanish system, where I have an exam of maybe 2 questions and I have to learn everything, and the teacher is going to adjust 2 points of the whole course. So I think that it's interesting the way to teach, but also I have to be honest, as far as I know, in the different universities is not the same program when you come for an exchange and in English than someone that may be Chinese and is learning Chinese law.
Okay, thank you for that. Interesting insight there. I've got a question here for you. Do you think that there is a clear link between the way of teaching and learning and the cost of learning that could explain the high percentage of GDP, gross domestic product, assigned to education in Europe, though without the results? Or is the money just wasted on the bureaucracy? I'm not sure if we've got any of the bureaucrats here.
Yes, that's an interesting question. And in fact, I had been reading about that, and different teachers complain that the money that is invested is not invested in a positive way. Lately, the money in different countries, for example, in Italy, has been invested in trying to reduce the number of students per class. Instead of have 40 students in a high school, try to have 20, because it was said that it was more productive. But different people thought that that was not a good solution. But yes, I think that it's not really related, because maybe in different countries there can be different problems, as you mentioned, of bureaucracy or even maybe corruption. So even if there is more spending, it doesn't mean that it has to be more efficient. And that's the proof. Countries like Hong Kong are spending less than other European countries, and they're performing much better.
Okay, thanks. Well, I saw Professor Christopher Gain laughing at that one, so question as well. I think there's quite a lot we could talk about in that.